morning, everyone. Good morning. Thank you for helping to turn off the music. Thank you. My name is Becky Noble. I'm the executive director here at the Playhouse, and it is my pleasure to welcome you home. Paul Tranisi was a friend of over 50 years, a collaborator on many musical items, a personal performer who I performed with many times, and a great lover of the arts. And he inhabited a number of roles on this stage and on the stage of the Drew. So it seems fitting that we should pay tribute to him here. I would first like to welcome Bishop Michael Moten, who will give an opening prayer.
Good morning. Morning. Can we have just a moment of silence? Gracious and merciful Heavenly Father, we come to you today with heavy hearts. We gather today to mourn the death of our friend, Paul Michael Tranisi. First of all, we thank you for this occasion, even though it's sad. It has brought together friends and relatives of a man who meant much to many people. We thank you for his contribution to the city, the arts, and particularly the Omaha Community Playhouse. We thank you for his friendship and contributions to our lives. Lord, in this time of sorrow, we ask for your comfort. You are the comforter. Your word says all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are the called according to his purpose. For this, Lord, we praise you. Lord, teach us to love you more, answer your call, and to discover our purpose in you. Again, Lord, we ask you to comfort all of us who mourn today and be with us throughout our lives. Continue, Paul, to be a blessing to all of Paul's family and friends. Thank you, Lord, for hearing our prayers. We give you glory and honor. In Jesus' precious name, amen.
Paul's friend Camille Matoyer Moten will now sing Love Never Dies, accompanied by Dave Murphy. Just a moment of levity right here. The fact that I have my words makes me think about Paul's idea that we would have like an apparatus that would come out from our neck and hold our words like right there. So I know he would appreciate the fact that I didn't memorize the words. I'll be calling you when the meadowlark sings. I'll be touching you with the warm spring rains. I'll watch over you like the moon in the sky. For I know love never dies. Though the winds may blow and scatter all our faith and our hope, there's only one thing that really matters, and that's love. That's love. And I'll be ever true, like a northern sky.
your eyes and rest easy. 'Cause love never dies. Though the winds may blow and scatter all our faith and our hope, there's only one thing that really matters, and that's love, sweet love. So I'll be calling you each time another heart sings, and I'll be touching you with every beat of its wings. Oh, every evening falls, you just close your eyes and rest easy. Oh, rest easy. 'Cause love never dies.
Camille could have also just taken a little walk behind the piano, because Paul is really good at that too.
Yeah.
He knew that the pianist had the words, so sometimes just find a way to walk back there for a brief moment or two. Now we'll have words from Chris Stout Hazard about Paul's wishes.
Hi everyone, thanks so much for joining us today to celebrate Paul. I'm Chris Stout Hazard, one of his nephews. Paul had requested that some of his last wishes be shared at the ceremony, so in his words, I want to be remembered as someone who loved his family and friends and was grateful for the precious moments we created together. My life was blessed because you were part of it. You've enriched my life, gave life meaning, and created so many cherished and lasting memories. I'm so grateful for your love and friendship. I was lucky to become a father late in life, and to know the pride that comes from seeing my daughters, Jordan and Reese, become wonderful women. Thank you, Nicole, for sharing that with me. I haven't always made smart or selfless decisions in my life, and I apologize for my actions that have impacted others. I never wanted to hurt anyone, and I leave this world regretting this choice. I ask for your forgiveness and wish you a lifetime of good health and happiness. Likewise, please know that I forgive everyone who has caused me any pain, and I hope they can find forgiveness in their hearts for me too. I want you to know that I do not fear death itself. I believe that our life force is too powerful to be extinguished. I think it simply changes form. I've lived a full and happy life and leave this world with a grateful heart. I hope that my family can make peace with each other. Family has always been important to me, and I regret anything that has separated us. I know that Mom and Dad hoped our family bonds would remain strong forever, and I hope that maybe we could set aside personal feelings to find unity again. I've been blessed with a wonderful life, surrounded by so many kind and generous people. My life is rich and complete because you were part of it. Please don't dwell on what you've lost. Be grateful for what we have experienced and accomplished. I ask that you celebrate the life we share together.
Thank you, Chris. And now some remarks from friends and family. First, from Nicole Tranisi.
I just wanted to thank everyone for coming to Paul's celebration of life. I know a lot of you have traveled long distances to get here, and I think Paul would really be so thankful that you made time to come to this. Also wanted to thank the Omaha Community Playhouse for letting us have this space. And, this was kind of Paul's second home away from home on the stage. So it's very fitting that we're having it here. I also wanted to thank all of the people who have helped make this happen today, because I did very little. And you know who you are. I can't name everyone because I'm sure I'll miss someone. So I just want you to know that I love you and I appreciate you and thank you. So I'm not a public speaker. I work with data. I'm not a performer. I'm not a writer. This was Paul's strength, but Paul had, shared his kind words and singing at so many different celebrations for many of us today. I mean, let's have a raise of hands. How many people have heard Paul sing and how many at one of their celebrations? Yeah, it's amazing. So I thought that it would be important for me to speak today. And everyone who made it here, all these people, it's just a testament to the profound impact that Paul had on so many people throughout his life. I've enjoyed hearing and reading all of the different stories and memories that you guys have put out on social media, that you've sent to me personally, that you've shared in other ways. I will cherish those remembrances, and I hope to try to capture them in the next few months in a special way and be able to share them out. So if you have a story that you're not comfortable sharing today with us in this forum, but you would like to write it down, I will read through the sign-in book and read your memory and try to capture that as well. So one of Paul's favorite stories is written by James Miller. This tale highlights the power of remembering those we've lost by sharing their stories, keeping them alive that way. So it goes like this. Do you have a magic spell to return someone to life? The young woman asked the witch. No, the witch said, I'm sorry. The woman replied, disappointed. The witch said, why don't you tell me about them? Will that bring them back? The woman asked. For us, for a little while, the witch said. Stories are a different kind of magic. And that's what I want to do for you guys here today. I want to share some of the stories with you about the time that I shared with Paul. I know some of you have stories to share as well, and I would love to hear those too. Paul and I have been together nearly 10 years. We've been married for 6 years next Friday on June 21st. I first met Paul in 2014, really by chance. At the first glance, the two of us did not seem like a very likely pair. We seemed like very different people. I met him on Ollie the Trolley, actually. I sat behind him on Ollie the Trolley as part of our Christmas light tour. Paul was always a big Christmas enthusiast, Halloween too, but Christmas as well. And I was more of a Christmas cynic. Paul used to call me Scrooge. So Paul wrote his own account of our story, how we met, in a biography he was working on, and I just wanted to share part of that with you here today. They always say love finds you when you're not looking for it. It was true for Nicole and me. Our introduction was quite by accident at a business holiday party hosted by my dear friend Steve in Omaha. I'm shy, so it surprised me when I asked for permission to kiss her and get her phone number. After that, we planned our first date. M's Pub had been a romantic destination for many couples, and it was for us too. We had a wonderful evening together. My trips to Omaha became more frequent until my weekend visits became routine. What never became routine were the feelings that we shared for each other. It became obvious to us at an early stage that only one word could adequately define what we were nurturing together: love. And love is the core theme of my life with Paul. We had a very full and busy existence surrounded by our dogs, our girls, Jordan and Reese, as well as our family and friends. We were lucky enough to share our joy of music, art, travel, movie, the outdoors, game nights, meals, all together with our girls and with you. I wanted to share a little story of when Paul was first in our lives. We would go on these family trips all around the U.S. in the car, and the girls would play their music. And I just remember that Paul's introduction was a little bit, had a little kickstart to it. He would just listen to the lyrics, and he would be silently deciphering them. Some of the titles, were like "Walk" by Cardi B, "Often" by The Weeknd. Over time, Paul began to learn the songs well enough that he could sing along and, add his own kind of spin on it with his own lewd lyrics. And then he would even start singing very super loud in the car, the refrain. Maybe it was all the right words, but in such a way that we just would burst out laughing. He had just such a great way of making new lyrics. Paul brought his love of Broadway to the girls and I by inviting us to various shows in Omaha and even taking us to Broadway in New York. He shared his love for travel with us as well. Our last family vacation was last summer. Reese traveled with Paul and I to Amsterdam and Copenhagen. And then we met up with Jordan in Italy, and we all had a great time in Italy together. Paul was a proud, I wanted to add something. So if anyone is a New York Times Wordle, I'm going to ruin the word for today, so close your ears. But I don't know if this was Paul speaking to me this morning while I did the Wordle or not, but the word was proud, and Paul was a proud graduate from UNL. When Reese began looking at colleges, he really encouraged her to keep UNL in mind, and maybe that's stated lightly. He was really encouraging her. Reese will graduate from UNL next May, finishing her degree in 4 years, which is a little bit faster than Paul's extended tenure. But we know that Paul will certainly be looking down on Reese's graduation next year. As the Tranisi family legacy continues with another generation. Oh, I read it. For a self-identified shy person, Paul wasn't at all shy about telling people how much he loved his girls and how much they meant to him. He told me several times he felt that meeting me was his destiny, partly because he was meant to play an influential role in Jordan and Reese's lives. While Paul didn't have children of his own, he considered Reese and Jordan to be his kids, and he loved them in a judgment-free voice of reason, which guided them through their challenges of growing up. His approach, he approached the role in the girl's life with love, kindness, humor, while also sharing wisdom that only comes through life experiences. And I know that Paul told me that he hoped that the girls were learning as much from him as he was learning from them. Last year on Father's Day, Paul gave the girls a bound book. He wrote about his life. It was such a special gift. It was a labor of love for him to get it completed, but it's a gift that girls will cherish forever. And there is one copy up on the table up front, if you guys wanted to look through it. I just wanted to read a little part that Paul wrote specifically for them in that book. I am not your birth father, but I hope you feel I treat you and care for you like my own. I certainly consider myself lucky to have 2 smart kids and beautiful daughters with so much promise for the future. No dad could be prouder. From the time we were introduced, you both have grown so much. I have seen your physical, mental, emotional transformations. You are both curious, conscientious, and responsible about the world you live in and the world you want to share and leave behind for future generations. Set your feet on the right path and invite others to join you. Be proud of who you are. I hope your journey makes you feel challenged, joyful, and fulfilled. Hold on to cherished moments and discard disappointments. May you live a long life filled with happiness, good health, growth, love, and prosperity always. I love you, Jordan. And I love you, Reese. The memorial card that I printed up on the front table has a picture that Paul took years ago before KETV moved to the Burlington station. And the building was fairly run down at the time, but Paul's artful eye spotted a door spray painted "Love Each Other." Considered graffiti by many, Paul recognized the power in that simple statement and captured the photo as a testament to the kind, spiritual, and loving man he was. Paul loved that photo. He had it framed. Connie told me he had it framed, another frame in his office as well. But we have one hanging in our house in a prominent place today. And it just reminds everyone who comes in to love each other. This simple statement, love each other, is what I'll leave you with today. Paul lived his life spreading love and joy to everyone he met, including everyone present today. And especially to me and to Jordan and to Reese. Today is meant to be a time for those closest to Paul to share memories, laughter, tears, and most importantly, love. Love is the legacy Paul leaves behind. He will be missed tremendously, but he will never be forgotten. We can all honor Paul's memory by loving each other today, tomorrow, and always.
Thank you, Nicole. And now Susie Collins, director of Paul and a co-collaborator in Sweeney Todd with him. She is the co-artistic director here at the Playhouse. Thank you, Becky.
Hello, everyone. See what happens. Yes, my name is Susie Bear Collins. I'm currently serving as co-artistic director here at the Omaha Playhouse. But I've been involved with the Playhouse since the late 70s, and this is indeed a very appropriate place for us to remember and cherish Paul. I'd like to share a little bit about the Paul Tranisi I knew as an actor and a singer and a performer. I first saw Paul on stage in 1979, shortly after I moved to Omaha. The show was Camelot, right here on this stage, and Paul played Lancelot du Lac. It was his first show at the Playhouse, and you couldn't ask for a more romantic male lead, at times wearing a full suit of armor. I don't know how that happens. He made his mark here, singing the beautiful "If Ever I Would Leave You" in his glorious baritone. And then later in 1983, I saw Paul portray the King of Siam in the Rodgers and Hammerstein musical, The King and I. His partner in that show, Janet Wallace, is with us today. I'm so happy you're here, Janet. As the king, Paul not only revealed a wonderful sense of humor in the earlier parts of the play, but he gave a very poignant performance as the king who faced his own mortality at the end. Throughout the decade, Paul championed several more remarkable and challenging roles, such as Che Guevara in Evita and Tevye in Fiddler on the Roof. During that time, we were theater acquaintances at best. It wasn't until 1994 when I had the opportunity to play opposite Paul in the musical by Stephen Sondheim called Sweeney Todd that we became friends. Many people here would attest to the joy of being on stage with Paul. I found him to be an incredibly attentive scene partner who would actually listen and respond in the moment, a rarity, something we always all strive to do. It's pretty darn fun to be on stage with Paul as the demon barber, Sweeney Todd. When he's singing about his friends, for instance, a set of razors from which he has been separated while in prison, or when he sings Sweeney's famous Epiphany with the fierce, resounding phrase, "I will have vengeance, I will have salvation." Or the two of us blithely singing at the end of the first act about who gets eaten and who gets to eat. It was high drama and camp at the very same time, and even more fun to get to know Paul off stage. He could be wickedly funny. You had to listen, and you had to sit right next to him to catch it. And at the same time, he was extremely direct and sincere. He never said an unsincere word to me, whether it was a compliment or a, hey, what's going on? Our theater relationship changed a bit when I got to direct him in a number of shows. Paul was a powerful Ogwe, the god of water in Once on This Island, capable of summoning thundering storms and wild seas, as well as calming them. Talk about a powerful baritone. In The Secret Garden, Paul played the affecting and lonely Archibald Craven, so lost and so closed off since the death of his beloved wife. It was miraculous in this musical to see how a young girl could open up his heart and rekindle his relationship with his son. Paul's Captain von Trapp in The Sound of Music showed us a patriotic Austrian and widowed father who finds himself at a loss to raise 7 children, let alone remain in his beloved Nazi-occupied Austria. As I look at his legacy of performance here at the Playhouse, I can't help but acknowledge this repertoire of significant leading roles. Paul seemed to consistently shoulder these heroic, vulnerable, proud, tragic characters, all a bit bigger than life, actually. I believe he recognized parts of himself in the act of playing many of these roles, and I can't help but see similarities with some of these roles in his own life. I wish we'd been better friends, but I cherish the time we had. Our last production together was a musical called A Man of No Importance. Among other things, it was about the freedom to be who you are and to love who you love. I adored doing this show with Paul because for once he played an ordinary man. A simple butcher. There's a great photo of him wrestling sausages in the program. A butcher who loved and adored his time performing great works on the stage. That was so reflective of who he was to me. That was Paul. I want to talk now about a friend of Paul's who couldn't be here today. His name is Scott Miller. He was one of Paul's dear friends. An amazing singer himself, Scott and Paul performed together in the Soli Deo Cantorum and had many opportunities to sing together, Becky and Camille and so many others. And now in Minneapolis, unable to join us, I would like to share something he wrote on the occasion of Paul's passing. This is Scott's voice. I guess my experience with Paul was a similar experience to what others enjoyed. He could make me cry with laughter with his sense of humor and sarcasm. He was a true buddy. We could discuss anything, and trust was never an issue. He was a man of integrity, great humor, quiet confidence, humility, generosity, with high standards in all endeavors, and of course, great natural artistic acumen and talent that emanated from his core being. Well said, Scott. He goes on, whenever I performed with Paul, and I wish it had been more, I felt respected and supported as an artist and a colleague. It was just great fun and collaboration. You never felt alone or like he was competing with you. He was the best of colleagues. More importantly, Paul was the best of friends. He was like a brother to me that I could see every few years and just pick up right where we left off the last time. Just comfortable. Paul was solid. I already miss him so much. When I see his name in my messages, my first instinct is to still share something with him. So, I will share a song that if I could be there, I would offer for Paul. It's a centuries-old Irish folk song called The Parting Glass, and it was sung as a final toast to those departing an event or departing a life. Scott can't be here, and I'm no singer, but I would like to share the first words of this song. Of all the money that e'er I had, I spent it in good company, and all the harm that e'er I did, alas, it was to none but me. And all I've done for want of wit, to memory now I can't recall. So fill to me the parting glass, good night, and joy be with you all. Good night, dear Paul. Thank you for your friendship, talent, and love.
And now Paul's good friend, Robert Hines.
Hello, everyone. This will be a little tough for me, but we're going to get through this. I brought some notes, and I came prepared. My emotional support handkerchief. We're going to go, and we're going to get through this. I would also like to thank everyone for coming today for Paul's celebration of life. We got people coming from long distances, from way back. I've got our good friend, Mark Beth Rasmussen, known them since 9th grade. Mark came up from Corpus Christi. Our Mary and Ray Scalise here somewhere. Oh, they're hiding. So Mary also goes back to our freshman year in college. So thank you. Ray worked with Paul, I think at Builder's Supply. You can talk to Ray about liquid lunches, at Builder's Square, and then going back and working with heavy-duty machinery. Thank you. I'm going to try and I covered all that. Thank you again. I'm not a professional speaker. Either Paul's looking down on us right now, smiling. Some of you do know me, some of you don't. I'll try to explain my history with Paul and what Paul meant to me. Brief history, my family moved to Omaha in November of 1965. I went to Crestridge Elementary. My 5th grade teacher was, and I'll make this quick, was Mrs. Nelson. When I got there, there weren't enough lockers, you know, to put your books and your coats and all that. So a young kid there, 10-year-old boy named Paul Tranisi, volunteered to share a locker with me. And Paul and I have been friends ever since. I did the math, that's 58 and a half years. So we've been friends a long time. Some of our memories from grade school, Paul and I would go to Saturday gym at Crestridge, and that involved basically just running around, expending energy and having fun. But it was after gym class that was important to us. Mr. Spataro, who was the janitor of Crestridge, would have to set up for St. Robert's Sunday Mass. St. Robert's didn't have a church at that time, so they would meet at Crestridge, and that's where they had the Mass. And it was, Paul and I used to go and help Mr. Spataro set up, and we thought we were the coolest thing ever. And Mr. Spataro was a great guy, allowing us to do that. And we loved helping him. In junior high, we both went to Beveridge. I kind of lost track of Paul in 7th grade. I don't think we had any classes together, but we kind of got back together in 8th and 9th. One of the memories, not necessarily at Beveridge, but was Friday night dances. If people remember that from St. Luke's. Paul and I and our friend Joe Hallquist worked the snack bar. And we'd get up to St. Luke's early. We'd grill hamburgers and fries and make sodas. We also played pinball, and we figured out how to get free games on the pinball machine. I don't remember exactly how we did it, but it was kind of like the Fonz, you know, you'd hit it, we would score a free game. And if you wanted to make Paul mad, wait until they had a good pinball machine and then hit the machine and tilt it. So that would stop it. And then Paul would end up chasing us around, making threats. High school, I was only at Omaha Bird for about a year and a half, and then my family moved to Minnesota. Paul and I always kept in touch. In fact, Nicole gave me a letter that I had written to Paul probably in 1972, and we were making plans to room together at the University of Nebraska. The highlight of our freshman year is we both achieved scholastic probation. If you're not familiar with that, that's a D or less average. So imagine both of us trying to explain that to our parents. That's why it might have taken Paul a little bit longer to get through. We were roommates for 2 years in Lincoln. We shared a dorm room together. I can't remember if we ever had a crossword or an argument with each other. Paul was a night owl, and I was a morning person. Somehow we made it work. Paul would wake me up at 1 or 2 in the morning because he wanted to borrow my car to go to Valentino's and pick up garlic cheese bread. I would give him the keys or tell him where they were at. I'd go back to sleep. He'd come back an hour later with garlic cheese bread, offer me some. I would eat it and go back to bed. The freshman 15 was real. I left Lincoln after my sophomore year, but Paul and I had a great time in Lincoln, and we had the GPA to prove it. Paul's great loves were theater and the performing arts, so it's very appropriate that we're having a celebration of life here. His other great love was University of Nebraska football. And I'm assuming Memorial Stadium was busy today, otherwise it would have been. Paul and I have been coming to Nebraska games since our freshman year. His dad actually had season tickets from 1962, so Paul's been going a lot more than I, but when we were roommates, that started a tradition. So for the last 50 years, we've been coming to Nebraska games. We've seen some incredible highs, the national championship team, both in the 70s and the 90s, and of course more recent times when maybe not so well, but Paul never gave up hope. My gosh, there was always next year. He would send me stats on new Nebraska recruits, what their 40 times was, what this guy could bench press. I mean, he never gave up hope. Paul was so generous. In the 80s and 90s, he would invite my dad and myself to games. So every year my dad lived in North Carolina, he would make the pilgrimage, and we would all go to Lincoln for a game. When my dad couldn't go in the early 2000s, it got to be a little too much. He invited my sisters to games, my kids. Got to go. My wife, they came to the games. My sister's kids, my nieces, came to the games. So it was a true family affair. I don't know if I convinced any of them to be Husker fans, but I think they were there to help support me. To be honest, and again, not that I didn't want Nebraska to win, but the games were always secondary. It was more important to be with Paul, have a slice of Valentino's or Runza, and just be with him in the environment and enjoy our friendship. I'm skipping stuff, sorry. Paul was very, very proud of his Italian Sicilian heritage. Paul's dad, the doc, or Dr. Tranisi, grew up in Omaha's Little Italy. Paul would bring me along, sharing the old neighborhood, showing me where his dad grew up. We used to go to spaghetti dinners at St. Francis Cabrini, where his parents were married. When I would come to visit, we would go to spaghetti lunch at the Sons of Italy. He he was so proud, and he included me on that, and it meant a lot to me. We'd go to Orsi's Bakery for Italian bread. As kids, we'd spend a lot of times at Big Fred's. As adults, when I would come back to see a game, we'd always try to hit Big Fred's when I came to town. That was the important stuff. I am personally not of Italian descent. My ancestry DNA, when I did that, just said hillbilly. The mountains of North Carolina. My wife accuses me of being an Italian wannabe. I am forever grateful to Paul for including me with his family. And I want to touch base, I'm skipping around, sorry. I want to touch base a little bit on Paul's sense of humor. He had a wicked sense of humor. He had no filters at all. So being PC might have not been part of his deal. Not sure the best way to describe it, but he could always make me laugh. A year ago in April, my wife's sister, and their niece, and I went to Washington, D.C., took a trip to Washington. We found a statue of Albert Einstein. So we were all kind of sitting around Albert. We asked another tourist to take our picture. And I posted the picture on Facebook with the caption, "Find the Einstein in this group." Paul's comment was, "Holding the camera." As funny as that was, the woman who took the picture was a neurosurgeon. He was actually right. To the Tranisi family, Carla, Christy, Frank, Jimmy, Rita, the loss of your brother is devastating. He loved you all. He is so happy to see you all together. Nicole, Jordan, Reese, know that Paul loved you. Jordan, Reese, Paul thought of you as his daughters and could not have been prouder of you. I'm going to wrap this up. I have a hole in my heart that may never heal. I have my memories and endless laughs. 2 10-year-old boys from Crestridge Elementary. It's been a great ride, but I will see you again. Save me a seat. Hopefully, I've got grandkids, so I'm going to be around a little bit longer, but I will see you again. Thank you for being my friend. Thank you for being my brother from another mother. I love Paul. Thank you.
There are about 10 minutes if anyone wants to say anything at all.
We have 2 people signed up.
2 people signed up.
Tim?
Tim? Come on up, Tim. Who's the second one? Who is the second one?
Lynette. Lynette.
Lynette. And Lynette. First, Tim. Lynette, be ready.
Hi, I'm Tim McGonigal. Paul and I met in Rouen, France, probably in the 90s. Our mutual friend Clark Eady, go way back. But I met Paul when he arrived in this beautiful little town in Normandy for a 2.5-week trip with us, and his bag didn't arrive. So since I was the closest in size to him, Paul shared my trousseau for the rest of the trip until the bag arrived, I think four villages later, so it was quite a deal. I always saw Paul with a camera. He was, even though he might have been a night owl, he was a daytime photographer. So he was up early, usually at first light, to get the shots. And that continued for the trips that we took in 8 countries up until last year, when we were in Copenhagen and Amsterdam together. So he always had the camera. He was always looking for that special shot, and I can't believe we aren't going to have another one next year. But the reason we were introduced to him was my friend from grade school and high school, Clark Eady, who was a Omahaite for quite a while. I know he and Paul go way back. And Clark was not able to be here today. He's in France. He's a resident of France. And he put together these trips that got Paul and I and my wife Barb together. Paul made all of them with the exception of Tuscany, when his brother Frank and Rita stepped into the fray. So we had a Tranisi on the trip, even though it wasn't Paul himself. So this is from Clark for Paul, May 22nd, 2024. There are times when grief surrounds us and holds us fast, as when a loved one leaves this world for the next, and we become the grieving ones left behind. Such a moment we are living now. But there are times when death brings a new feeling alongside that of our grief. At those times, there comes warmth and gratitude brought on by the great good fortune of our having known and loved this person so thoroughly and so deeply. And while tinged with sadness, the memories shared and the new life to come for my dear friend Paul can assuage the fact that our ways have parted for a while. And that, I feel, is all that it is, the separation for a while. Paul lived a life of sensitivity, caring, and talent. His sense of infectious and just fit with mine. Never did we have a conversation that did not end up with a hearty laugh or joke, no matter how serious. He was a spiritual man, and that faith is now being rewarded. We must remember that we are but a speck of time, part of a glorious adventure whose true fullness will only be revealed when we pass through that door that Paul will leave open for us to join him one day. Knowing him has been a privilege and an honor, and I will miss him. And I concur.
Hello, my name is Lynette Matoyer Moore, and I'm the older sister of that hag that's going on. Really, she's a lovely person, Thank you. I first met Paul when they were teenagers, and a group of them would come over to our house and play pranks on people. Okay, so that's kind of how Paul was. But I had the honor of being in a show at the Emmy Gifford Children's Theater, which is now the Rose, called Oliver. And Camille and Paul were also in the production, and I don't know if there's anybody in here that was in it, but there were a few of us. We were horrible because we were a director's nightmare, Susie. Truly. None of us were on the stage very often. So we did things behind the scenes, okay? But when we first started rehearsals, the Gifford had brought in some real choreographer from like Des Moines who really thought she was going to be working with people that knew how to put their left foot in front of their right foot, okay? But no, that didn't happen. And she had designed this elaborate dance routine where a male would be in the middle and then he'd have a female on either side, okay? And then he would like throw her up in the air and bring her down between his legs, and it was like ridiculous. So, because Paul was a little heftier, they paired me with him. I was on the other side. And I got Paul by at least 50 to 80 pounds, all right? Not to say older. But the other girl on the other side was like a twig. Anyway, so she had us go through this, even though we couldn't dance, all right? And Paul was like, "Dad," looking at me like, "Oh, Lord Jesus, I don't know what this is." But his look was so frightening that I had a nightmare that he did try. And as he was trying to lift me up, I'm laying on the floor and I have pulled his arms off and blood is gushing from his shoulders. And so I told him about it, and he said, "That must be a bloody stump story." So all of our lives since then, the bloody stump story existed. Paul was the sweetest man. He would have taken one of those stumps and beat me with it if he knew I was telling the story. But anyway, this is the best venue for him to have a celebration. I can't thank you enough for Becky and Susie for doing this. This is really awesome. Anyway, love you.
And sadly, this is the director of that show, Oliver, who sort of just gave up on us, Mary Michelle Phillips. She was like, "Oh my God, we were terrible in this show." It was all Paul. Oh, she forgave us. So another dear friend, Mark Rasmussen, Dr. Mark Rasmussen, would like to say a few words.
Yeah, I'd like to say a few words because I knew Paul in high school. We met in 9th grade. I don't really remember 9th grade too much, but I do remember high school because we were in high school plays together. I did it because it was fun. He did it because he was good at it. And we were behind the stage doing, moving sets around and doing the curtain pulling and that kind of stuff. And that's kind of where it stopped for me. He went on to, greater fame. But I remember Paul in high school, basically just big hair. I mean, hair, just unruly hair. But he went with it, and it was like Paul. And he always wore bell-bottom jeans. And at one point, he had a satin bowling jacket that he wore everywhere, with sleeves rolled up. And you'd see him coming down the hall, and he'd always kind of have this. You knew he was going to say something totally hilarious when he got to you. So usually that's where we started. We were already laughing when we saw him coming. Then he would say something and we would start laughing. And then as we were walking down the hall towards class, he would lay on your shoulder while you walked. And you could barely support yourself, let alone him too. We'd be slamming into the lockers as we walked and laughed. And there was always a punchline where we would almost lose control of our legs and lay down in the hallway laughing, and that's what I remember about Paul. It was really good.
I have one quick story.
Okay.
So your story reminds me of, we were singing out at Mount Michael at their fall festival.
Oh, gosh!
Beth, who's here, Jerry, Camille, me, who else? There were Keith. I knew Keith was, I'm sorry, Keith. I knew you were there. It's my husband. Anyway, there were 8 of us, and we did this medley of popular songs, 100 years of popular songs. And Paul had a solo written by Mark Anthony, is that who it is? Called I Need to Know. That's what he sang in the 80s or 90s, whatever decade we were in at that point. Somehow he misheard the key of the piano. And he came in like this, I need to know! And Camille went, ooh, that ain't right. fell to the ground and attempted to raise ourselves back up to finish the rest of the medley. Hopefully we'll sound a little better on this.
So this song was one of Paul's favorite songs. And he introduced it to me, I think, when the soundtrack first came out. We never had an opportunity to sing it together, but I have had the opportunity to sing with my dear friend Becky, and we're going to sing it today for Paul.
I've heard it said that people come into our lives for a reason, bringing something we must learn, and we are led to those who help us most to grow if we let them, and we help them in return. Well, I don't know if I believe that's true, but I know I'm who I am today because I knew you. Like a comet pulled from orbit as it passes the sun, like a stream that meets a boulder halfway through the wood. Who can say if I've been changed for the better? But because I knew you, I have been changed for good. It well may be that we may never be again in this lifetime, but let me say before we part, so much of me is made from what I learned from you. You'll be with me like a handprint from my heart. And whatever way our story ends, I know you have rewritten mine because I'm your friend. Like a ship that's lost its mooring from the wind of the sea, like a bird that drops a seedling up in the sky. I've been changed for the better because I knew you. Because I knew you, I have been changed for good. And just to clear the air, I ask forgiveness for the things I've done you laid me for. But then again, I know there's plenty to share, and none of it seems to matter anymore. Like a stream that needs the sea from a break of water. Who can say if I've been changed for the better? I do believe I have been changed for the better. And because I knew you, because I knew you, because I knew you, I have been changed for 91, Paul and Camille and Jerry Grovick and I performed a little-known off-Broadway show called Closer Than Ever, the whole fall of 91 at the Omaha Marriott. It was great because they would leave it all open after we left, and Camille and I would have a glass of wine, and they'd say, "Hey, there's more behind the bar, just help yourself." And we did. But I would like to welcome Jerry Grovick to give a benediction.
Receive this benediction, friends. May the memories of Paul fill our hearts, like the poignant yet sweetly lyrical notes of a ballad well sung. His presence, like a spotlight on a darkened stage, forever etched in our souls. Let us remember him not with sorrow, but with the joy of a standing ovation. A life well lived, an unforgettable, award-winning performance. May his legacy echo through the drama of our lives, inspiring us to be better, love deeper, and sing louder. Now, as the final curtain falls, may Paul's spirit soar for good, leaving behind a legacy that defies time and transcends the ordinary. And in the grand theater of existence, may that which is eternal gently guide Paul's journey beyond the footlights and into the celestial encore. May it be so.
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you all for being here. There are cookies and lemonade and so on out front, and we invite you to spend time conversing and chatting and so on. Thank you all for coming.